The Heat have stole game one. They win game one, 123-116. We've brought a Celtics fan on back to the channel. TJ, let's just get straight into it. What is your initial reaction to this game?
Another disaster of a home performance early in a series by the Boston Celtics. I think this was really just a coaching masterclass by Eric Spoelstra. On the other hand, disaster class by Celtics coach Joe Mazzulla. Obviously, another big game by Jimmy Butler. I think Bam Adebayo obviously came through as well. And then you have your typical kind of Heat role player master classes as well with Max Strus and some of the other guys like Gabe Vincent.
Caleb Martin.
This Celtics team, they need like it's just like they can only play well when they put themselves in a hole. That's pretty much it.
G, how are you feeling after this win?
Look, I think it's justified because I'm tired of this bullshit ESPN analytics. I don't know who's making that shit. Whoever, if it's an AI, you gotta fucking throw the AI out because it's not working. 3%, that's disrespectful because it was clear, with anybody with eyeballs, anybody ever watched basketball, that Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA and he has the best player in this series. Look, Jimmy Butler and Jason Tatum, that's not a conversation. Jimmy Butler is better in every single way. He's better at passing, he's better at defending, and he's better at attacking, and he's more clutch. So the Heat have the better coach and the best player. And I think they have more streaky role players because, look, Max Strus goes out there, he looks like Ray Allen. Caleb Martin goes out there, and he looks like a two-way god. And Bam, thank God, Bam actually played very well because I think that's what separated the Miami Heat and the Celtics last season was that Bam would shrink in these moments against the Celtics. He did not play well, but this game he played dominant. He for most parts of the game he was the biggest guy on the court, and he played like it. And that's what he has to do. That's the only way that he are going to be more dominant. They have to, obviously win the battle on the boards, which I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think Bam did a pretty decent job at that. And just keep playing how they high intensity. I mean, Jimmy had 6 steals. I mean, he's a thief out there. He's about to get arrested for armed robbery. Like, look, I think it's a spectacular win. They had to get this win after they went down 16 in the first half. It was not looking too good, but the Heat have proven through this entire run that those leads don't matter. They were down big against the Bucks, multiple closeout games, and they were down big against the Knicks in a couple of those games. So I trust this Miami Heat team to get it done this year. I think they're going to get the revenge on the Celtics. To be frank, I hate the Celtics. I mean, I just they're the one team in the entire NBA I hate losing to. So obviously, I'm going to be watching this game and hoping it just ended in 4.
Yeah. Well, look, I agree with what you said, G. First of all, it is totally disrespectful to this Heat team to only give them 3%. I don't know who made that statistic at ESPN, but they are dead wrong. I'm not even saying that the Heat are favorites in this series or anything like that, but 3%, that's utterly disrespectful. I agree. Jimmy Butler is the best player in this series, and Spoelstra obviously is miles better of a coach than Mazzulla. I mean, Mazzulla, get ready to learn Chinese, buddy, because you are going to Taiwan. Dwight Howard needs a coach for that super team in Taiwan, and you're going to be it after this series. Coach Spo is running laps around you. I mean, it's night and day, and a tweet popped up on my timeline, and I think it speaks volumes because the Heat scored 45 points in a quarter in the third, and Mazzulla did not call a timeout one time. And to begin the fourth quarter, the Celtics had a streak 7-0 run, and Coach Spo calls a timeout 90 seconds in. That's the difference between these two coaches. First of all, I don't know what Mazzulla is thinking, and then I watched Mazzulla's press conference after the game, and he's just giving these horrible answers, and he just looks like he doesn't care. What did this guy do to deserve this job? This Celtics team is extremely talented. Honestly, probably the deepest team in the NBA. What did this guy do to deserve this opportunity? I mean, I just don't understand. Honestly, if the Celtics are serious, they need to get somebody in now. They still have a chance. They are not winning a championship with Mazzulla. You're not doing it.
I think they should give Joe Mazzulla a lifetime contract.
It's disrespectful to this team. And honestly, if this ends up going how I think it's going to go now and the Celtics lose this series, this could be the end of this Tatum and Brown era at the Celtics. And I'm going to get TJ's opinion on that. And I think it's a sad way for it to end because it's ending, in my opinion, because of the lack of ability to get a proper head coach in. I don't know what Joe Mazzulla did to deserve this opportunity, but it's an utter disgrace in my opinion. And I think the Heat go on and win this series. And obviously I'll get TJ's thoughts now because you've been slandering Mazzulla, I think this whole season pretty much. So,
I mean, even when we had the best record in the NBA, I was never really too big on Mazzulla. I think he really doesn't have any sort of like a play calling bag whatsoever. I think that was the first thing that put me off on Mazzulla. Whenever the Celtics would have an opportunity in a late game situation, in like an out of timeout play, just to draw up a play to win the game. We saw that in the 76ers series as well. I believe it was game 4. They didn't even get a shot off on the last play of the game. That's just inexcusable. There was 20 seconds left on the shot clock. They didn't even get a shot off. Just inexcusable offense. And I also think Mazzulla struggles to adjust within games. You mentioned before the lack of a timeout within the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the third quarter is where the game was lost at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They go into the third quarter at the start up 9, and the quarter ends and they're down 12 points. And so you have to mount a 12-point comeback in the fourth quarter just to get back in the game. And I think the third quarter was really lost because of just like a lack of effort and communication on the defensive end. I mentioned this earlier. Pick and roll offense has been a problem for the Celtics in the past couple series because like a player like Jimmy Butler, he'll get switched on to smaller defenders like a Malcolm Brogdon. And as a result of that, the Celtics are bringing like defenders to help off of shooters in the corner. So Jimmy Butler's a smart player. Jimmy Butler's a great passer. He'll see a double team. He'll just dump it off to Max Strus in the corner. I think Max Strus hit 3 or 4 threes. I believe he had 13 points himself just in the third quarter alone.
Mm-hmm.
He was 3 for 5.
Yeah, it's just inexcusable. Giving up 46 points in one quarter. I mean, let's face it, the Heat all season long, never an elite offensive team. But I think we saw the kind of gulf in quality and coaching and ability to make in-game adjustments in the fourth quarter especially.
So obviously, the Heat stealing game 1, and that's obviously huge for them going forward. Where do you stand now? Do you think that the Celtics can still go on and win this series, or are you losing faith?
You see, I mean, the Celtics have been in this position before. They went down, obviously, 3-2 in the last series to the 76ers, had to face 2 elimination games, and they had to win that kind of game 6 in Philly, and they were able to get the job done. I just think it's like, I mean, even the first round series against the Atlanta Hawks, that was a team that everyone expected the Celtics to run through, and it went 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this Celtics team is just, like I mentioned earlier, they always put themselves in a hole every series long, and I think eventually it could catch up to them. I'm obviously after game 1, I'm not going to rule ourselves out of winning the series just off of one game.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think like I've seen some Celtics fans say like, "Oh, don't panic. Like we always sell in game 1. We always choke. We'll
Celtics."
Exactly, and we'll figure it out. But I mean, eventually against a coach like Mazzulla, a player against like Jimmy Butler, who's the best player in the Eastern Conference playoffs so far, I think this is something that could catch up to us like 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit. Well, I was going to say, I think it's a bit surprising because I mean, after last season, the Celtics made the finals. They get Brogdon, and you think they just added Brogdon to come off the bench. This is going to make the Celtics a lot better. And I mean, when you look at the box score, the Celtics had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players finish in double figures. That's usually good enough. But I think what killed the Celtics today was they stopped playing defense after halftime. Because everybody scored that needed to score, other than Jason Tatum turning the Jason turnover in the fourth quarter that really put the nail in the coffin there. It was just the lack of defense, and I think that's something that they have to work on and they have to fix. And I think that's something they're definitely missing from Ime Udoka because that's what that was his bag.
Right.
Ime he transformed that Celtics team from what looked like a garbage. One of the best defensive teams in the league, and God, I'm glad he's gone. And there's a sigh of relief here that he may
Right?
be disappearing from
This
the coach no
roster's
more.
better than the roster last year.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's mostly the same guys. I mean, the only thing difference is they added Brogdon.
Sixth man of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, sixth man of the year, Brogdon. And I mean, this is a Miami Heat without Tyler Hero. And look, however anybody feels about Tyler Hero, he is a sixth man of the year. He's a guy that gave the Heat 20 points per game that we're missing. I mean, it'd be nice to have him, another guy to come off the bench, just in case like maybe a Caleb Martin isn't playing as hot as he is, but he's been on it this playoff run. But another guy they're missing. I mean, Victor Oladipo is gone. I mean, the Heat are missing a couple of guys here, and they're not like world beaters or nothing, but these are good depth guys that I'd like to have, but obviously we don't. But the Heat are able to scrap it with these wins together. I think, as much as I said I like the Heat to win in 4, obviously I don't think that's going to happen, but I do like the Heat's shots to maybe get it in 6 or 7.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, in order for the Celtics to win this series, I need Jason Tatum to elevate his game. And it's not to say he played terrible today, but 5 shots in the second half, it's unacceptable.
They went away from him. I think they froze him out of the game. And by the time they realized, oh shit, our star player hasn't touched the ball in 15 minutes, they have to dig themselves out of a hole in the fourth quarter.
But I think to a certain extent, Tatum needs to demand the ball. Because look, I love Jaylen Brown, but if the Celtics are going to win this series, Tatum has to say, give me the keys and I'll drive us home. This is the guy. He has to demand the ball. He has to take on Jimmy Butler if that's the guy who's going to guard him, and he has to win that matchup. He has to do it. And for me, he shrunk in the big moment tonight. The fourth quarter, 3 key turnovers. That was backbreakers. You can't win like that. In a close game against this Heat team with look, everyone wants to joke about the Heat culture, but it's a real thing. The Heat culture is real. Jason Tatum needed to step up, and for me, he shrunk in the big moments tonight. And I think that's going to be a big storyline going forward. What is Tatum going to do from here? Because it's not to say like he played terrible tonight, but that second half, only 5 shots. And you're supposed to be the star guy. You're supposed to be the guy that is leading the Celtics team. And look, no disrespect to Jaylen Brown, but he's the second guy. He's second fiddle to Tatum, in my opinion. And five shots is not good enough. And I don't know if that's Mazzulla or Tatum, whatever. But after a certain point, Tatum needs to just say, screw Mazzulla. I'm demanding the ball. I'm running the offense through me. That's what I think.
Yep.
I don't think that's a crazy
agree with
thing.
that. I would also say I think Tatum's just a much better decision maker with the basketball than Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen's mainly a player that gets the ball and can attack downhill. You're not really asking Jaylen to kind of like dribble and dish to another player or to like run to sort of like run the offense off a pick and roll. Tatum's the guy you want, whether it's scoring or whether it's passing. And Jaylen's more of a guy you want getting downhill and sort of finishing what Tatum creates. And I think just kind of going away from Tatum, whether as a scorer or creator, is kind of what really lost. I mean, early in the fourth quarter, the Heat had a lineup with Bam and Jimmy in, and Tatum was not in. You mentioned how Spo called a timeout so early in the fourth quarter. The first thing he did was to get Bam back in the game. Bam today was a game high plus 18. I mean, he was arguably the most impactful player on the floor tonight. And meanwhile, Jason Tatum, the Celtics star player, sitting on the bench. And the Heat really fought off like all sense of a comeback from the Celtics.
Yeah, because there was points to where they cut it to what I think 2 or 4.
Yeah,
I mean, it was still a very close
right away.
Well, at one point, the Heat went 3 minutes without scoring, and the Celtics were not able to capitalize on that. I think the closest they got it to was 4. And then I think it was Caleb Martin. He hit that kind of back-breaking three in the corner, extended it to 7, and that kind of felt like the dagger at that point. And then that shot when, Jimmy Butler, late in the shot clock, kind of, rattles in,
rattles in a 3.
Kind of a, some would call it lucky, whatever you want to call it. That's the one, they went up 10, and that was pretty much it from that point. But I want to ask you this because obviously it looking like it could be a real possibility. Eventually the Celtics may end up losing this series. If that happens, what do the Celtics do from here? Do you break up Brown and Tatum? Obviously I assume Mazzulla would be gone. What would you do?
I think Tatum's the key. Like I've been, Jaylen Brown's my favorite player in the Celtics. But I think Jason Tatum is really the most valuable player on the Celtics. I think that the most valuable player in the NBA is a player who can like run the offense, right? You want a player like a LeBron, you want a player like a Nikola Jokic who can score and play make for others. And I think that's more of what Jason Tatum can do rather than Jaylen Brown. So if you're going to make a move like player personnel wise, I think Jalen's the more tradable player. I do think the roster's not the problem. I mean, I think it's kind of a consensus opinion that the Celtics have the best roster in the NBA. And like, look, Joe Mazzulla really shouldn't be coaching this team. Joe Mazzulla, I mean, everyone knows it, right? He was the third best coach on the Celtics last year. The Celtics, obviously, their head coach, Ime Udoka. We all know what happened with Ime. Their main assistant, Will Hardy, took a job in Utah. He's now the head coach of the Utah Jazz. The Jazz, obviously, their team sucks, but they won like 40 games this year. They played above expectation. I think Will Hardy would be an upgrade over Joe Mazzulla, but he took a job before all the Ime stuff went down. So the Celtics didn't have an opportunity to promote him. So this is a guy that no one was talking about as a head coaching candidate. No one was like, oh, Joe Mazzulla's next up. He's the next Brad Stevens. He's the next Eric Spoelstra. No one was saying that about Joe Mazzulla. But hey, he found his way into the job, and now he's coaching the best roster in the NBA. So I think that's the obvious solution, right? On the other hand, like, I think a concern for the Celtics going forward now, if they don't end up winning this year, is Al Horford, who's been a key player for the team for a while now. I mean, obviously his first stint, and now since he's been back with the team, he's getting old. He's getting old.
He's getting old.
They're going to have to look for kind of a successor at the 5 spot. Obviously, you have Rob Williams right now, but I mean, like, Rob Williams doesn't have the same skill set as Horford, and Horford's like a $25 million a year player. So, I mean, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to replace Horford long-term as well. So that's another concern.
Yeah, well, Bam was making Rob Williams look like barbecue chicken out there tonight.
Barbecue chicken. Every time he saw him on the block there.
G, I want to look. Heat obviously took this game. What do you think? How far do you think the series goes?
If I had to take a guess right now, I'm still gonna give the Celtics a lot of respect in that I think it will go 7, but I think it's gonna be a different outcome than it was last year. I think Max Strus's foot's not gonna be on the line this time. Is that it's gonna be the difference? Oh, not necessarily not Max Strus.
Man, that game 7 last year.
I don't want to talk about that game 7, but this game 7 that's going to happen, I think this year it's going to be better. I'm going to like this one a lot more, and I think the Heat are going to be the first, well, not the first 8 seed, but one of the few 8 seeds to make the finals.
I think they would be. Would they? I think
no,
they would be, right?
I think an 8 seed before has made the finals. Just
I don't know.
No 8 seeds ever won.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Yeah,
and be the first play-in team to make a finals.
Yeah. Well, the Lakers will be meeting them there.
I mean, they lost. The team lost a play-in game, and
look, I still can't believe that, because I mean, I watched that. I was like, we lost to the fucking Hawks, bro. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm done watching this. And then we played the Bucks, and at the time, I praised Giannis as the best player in the NBA because that's what I thought he was. But I think the Heat, every time they run into Giannis, I mean, they just look at barbecue chicken. They love this. They love playing these fucking Bucks, man. They got Budenholzer fired.
Yeah,
like, it's spectacular, man. But look, I think the Heat have a very good chance of taking this, because I mean, I look at the Heat. I thought they got a little bit worse than what they were last year, but somehow have the Celtics.
Yep.
Inexplicably, but you know, it's going to be very close. I think. Game 2, I think the Celtics are going to have a bounce back. They're not going to go 2-0. I don't think the Celtics are going to go 2-0 because Tatum's going to have one of those games. He's going to have one of those games where he looks like fucking Kobe Bryant back to life, where, you know, he gets 50
He's
points.
He's texting Kobe before the game.
Yeah, he still texts Kobe
on the IG story.
I remember that, yeah.
So, TJ, what would you predict from here?
Man, I've been kind of a doomer throughout this whole playoffs, but
I can attest to that.
I think I'm going to say Celtics in 7. I think I'm going to say we'll figure it out in 7 games. We'll go on to win that game 7. I think this team has shown when they've had to deal with adversity, they've had to deal with going behind in a series, that they've been able to get the job done. And I think the Heat's lack of depth will end up hurting them in this series. It's not going to be because like Jimmy Butler has like a choke job like we saw Embiid have in Game 7. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the Celtics' depth prevails and they get the job done in the 7th game.
Yeah, look, I mean, I could see either of those two things happening, but the reason why I'm going to say that I think the Heat will take this in 7 games is because I believe in Jimmy Butler. He's the best player on either team. And also, the coaching difference between Coach Spo and Mazzulla is night and day. I mean, Mazzulla, like we have talked about, shouldn't even be coaching in the NBA, and Coach Spo is arguably the best coach in the NBA. And I think that's what ultimately is going to prevail, because ultimately, that Celtics team last year, this is not the same team. You could say the roster has gotten better, but overall, they're worse because of the coaching. And in a Game 7, winner take all, I'm not going to bet against Jimmy Butler, especially considering the coaching difference is just so vast. I know it would be in Boston, but we've just seen the Heat face all the adversity they faced in Boston in Game 1 and still respond and win by 7. And at the end, I mean, it was pretty convincing. I mean, you didn't really think at any point the Celtics were really going to win that game in the 4th quarter. I didn't. Even when the Heat went, 3, almost 4 minutes scoreless, I didn't sit there and I said, you know what, the Celtics are going to win this. Not at a single point where did I say that. So I think ultimately I'm going to have to back the Heat here. But, the Celtics very easily could win this series because they are, on paper, the better roster. And oftentimes that can, win you a series. Sometimes coaching, the difference doesn't matter too much. But I think in the playoffs it does.
I would have to agree with that.
So obviously you're going to have to let us know in the comments down below what y'all thought of this game, what y'all thought. What do you think is going to happen in this series? Do you think the Heat are going to win? Do you think the Celtics are going to win? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video. But I think without further ado, we can wrap this one up and get out of here.
But I mean, before that, can we just give a round of applause for we did this video on the background of what? The Champions League on the soccer pitch? Let's go!
I forgot to change it.
We got the right sport we're talking about here.
I forgot to change it.
You forgot to change it, but fuck it. I think today's a great night. I really needed this, so I think I'm going to sleep well tonight.
We'll hope to have TJ back on for another game after this series. Maybe after a Celtics
Hopefully
win.
A different result.
Yeah. But I think without further ado, I'm Zach.
I'm G.
I'm TJ.
And we'll see you next time for another video, man. Peace.